Good evening. The program will commence shortly. I request all the panelists and attendees to kindly keep their system muted during the session. This event is being live streamed on YouTube, and therefore we humbly request you to avoid any movement in the background for a smooth flow of event. We also encourage you to use chat box feature on Zoom and comments section on YouTube to share your thoughts and questions. Thank you for your cooperation. Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning. As you join us from different parts of the globe, Honorable Chief Guest of the Day, Shri M.J. Akbar, respected Shri Gopal Hasusa, President Ajit Alumni Association, the participating schools, Ajit's friends and families. On behalf of Ajit Knowledge Forum, I welcome you all to this August gathering. From being trained at the Indian Naval Academy, whose motto goes by Vidya Amritam Ashunite, which means knowledge begets immortality. It goes without saying that knowledge shared is power multiplied. Under the aegis of Ajit Alumni Association, the Ajit Knowledge Forum is an endeavor of alumni of Sainik School Bijapur to string together the pearls of wisdom by listening to accomplished thought leaders, industry experts, and eminent personalities. Today, we have an intriguing topic on our hands: the role and importance of ideology in building India for the 21st century. Now, when we think of ideology, it might sound like a heavy, serious word, right? It constantly needs new version to keep up with the changing times. In this session, we are going to explore how the beliefs that have shaped India can adapt to the changes of this century. We are gathered here today for yet another enriching session. But before we commence today's proceeding, we shall observe a minute silence as a mark of respect to the departed Ajits, and we pay homage and condolences to whom we have lost in recent times. These being late Commander B.B. Khilari, late Colonel Kaddur Maleshwari, late Sri Gangadhar Nirvani, late Sri Mr. H.R. Nagaraj, late Sri Gordhan Rao, late Sri Shivyogi, late Dr. Shankar T. Patil, late Sri Prahlad Joshi, late Padi Patil, late Sri Udayabali. Dear friends, I now kindly request you to stand in your places and observe a minute silence. Thank you very much. Friends, the Ajit Knowledge Forum today is greatly honored to have amidst us Sri M.J. Akbar, a prominent politician, a journalist, and a writer. I now invite Ajit Sri Sudarshan Satija sir, roll number 382, 1975 pass out, to address, give the welcome speech and introduce us to the speaker. Over to you, Sudarshan sir.
Thank you, Chetan. Respected Shri M.J. Akbar, esteemed guests, principals of Sainik School Bijapur, Group Captain Pratibha Bisht Ma'am, teachers, staff, and students from Sainik School Bijapur, Sani School Satara, Sani School Nagrota, Sani School Amravati Nagar, Yakato University New Zealand, Doon Business School Dehradun, BIT MBA Nagpur, Annapurna MBA College Sankeshwar, KLA MBA College Belgaum, JG Group of Institutions, KLE Diploma College Chikodi, Magnum Tough, Shri Basveshwara Cooperative Bank Nipani, and 3rd Karnataka Battalion NCC cadets, along with one of our Ajit, Colonel Shashidhar Malagi, GRD Group of Institutions, Dehradun, with their professor, Commander Negi, our mentor, Colonel BGV Kumar, Shri Gopal Hasur, our president of AAA, Ashok Dalwai, IAS and advisor of alumni programs, Ajit's, families and friends of Ajit's, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of AAA and AKF, it is my honor to extend a warm welcome to all of you for today's event. We gather here both physically and virtually for a very special occasion. I am especially delighted to welcome our distinguished speaker, Shri MJ Akbar, who has graciously accepted our invitation to share his insights from this AKF platform. Sir, I'm also happy to share that your books are made available at the Sani School, Bijapur School Library to commemorate today's lecture. Once again, a heartfelt welcome to all of you. It's my privilege to introduce our distinguished speaker, Shri MJ Akbar, who will speak on a subject of immense relevance to today's India, the role and importance of ideology in building India for the 21st century. Shri Akbar is one of the India's finest journalists, editors, and authors. His exceptional ability to weave history, politics, and society into his writings has made a lasting impact. With a career that began at a young age, he played a crucial role in shaping modern journalism in India by leading prominent publications such as The Telegraph, The Asian Age, and The Sunday Guardian. His fearless approach to investigate journalism has set new standards for the industry. In addition to his journalism, Shri Akbar's books on history, the Middle East, and India's socio-political landscape have earned him recognition globally. Works like The Shade of Swords and Tinderbox highlight his deep understanding of complex issues, offering readers a lens to view the world through a nuanced and critical perspective. Beyond the printed world, his insights and experience span decades of observing and shaping India's growth story. Shri MJ Akbar, as Minister of State for External Affairs in Shri Narendra Modi's first term as Prime Minister, represented India on global platforms and gained international recognition for articulating India's foreign policy. As our country steps confidently into the 21st century, Shri Akbar's perspective on ideology and its role in nation building is more relevant than ever. His ideas speak to the aspirations of all Indians, from young students to seasoned professionals, from those who serve in our armed forces to retired bureaucrats, and indeed, everyone who cherishes India's future. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Shri MJ Akbar. Over to you, Chetan.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for welcoming and introducing us to our speaker of the day. Without further ado, now I welcome Shri MJ Akbar to address the August gathering. Sir, please. Sir, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chetan. Thank you very much, everybody, for your very warm invitation. And I can only begin by saying that already I have had the very great pleasure of reconnecting with old friends like Srikant and making new ones like Ashok. And for that itself, I owe you a debt. Now, before I begin, I just want to make 2 points on the basis of the remarks that have been made. I was reminded when hearing about Ajit, about a very famous ancient proverb that knowledge is the only thing that grows when you give it away. And we really need to think about it. And I think one of the great things that has happened in the last 30, 40 years has been the expansion of the knowledge base across our country. That is one of the true revolutions of our time. Second was, I think Chetan used the term Middle East. I recall I was at Manama at speaking at their very famous international forum, and they had titled their talk or their subject, their theme was on the Middle East. I was in Bahrain, and the first thing I asked, I said, "You've used the term Middle East. Can you kindly explain to me the middle of which east are you in?" Right? They are not the Middle East, they are West Asia. They are the Middle East only if your world starts within the embrace of the British Empire and begins from London and goes to India. Then you're in the middle of the East. Otherwise, you are West Asia. And it's extremely important that we understand the terminology that we use. Fortunately, a lot of the world now has begun to correct the imperial colonial terminology, but words shape understanding. Words convey sometimes more than we ourselves uh, think they do. To our subject then, and after I got your warm invitation, I got two telephone calls. One was from Ashok, of course, and thank you. A very warm conversation. And then I got a call from my very, very old and dear friend, Gopal Hasur, who was, like the great, honest policeman he is, very stern. He told me, "Don't be boring." And and I of course, as usual, I obeyed him immediately. And I think what Gopal was worried about, that when you have a subject like ideology, then the tendency to be boring is almost is both immediate and probably inevitable. But Gopal and friends, the word that intimidates me is not ideology so much as the 21st century. Time is a very unique fact in our lives. There is a great saying, a proverb: whoever has made a New Year's wish has not met God. Let's take a history lesson. Let's take a history lesson. Let us stand on the edge of every decade for the last 50, 60 years and see if on the edge of a decade, we had the imagination or the understanding or the knowledge to actually predict what would happen in that decade. If you stand in 1960 and think about what will happen in 1960s, who would have predicted the 1962 war? Who would have predicted the 1965 war, indeed 1967, the 1967 famine, or the loss of power for the first time by the Congress? Stand on the edge of 1970 and be honest. Who would have predicted that in 1971 Pakistan would have split apart? The whole idea of Pakistan would have self-destructed. And it's a point to which I will return later on in my intervention or in my conversation with you. Who would have predicted 1975? Who would have predicted the emergency of 1976? Who would have predicted 1977, the general elections? Stand on the edge of 1980. Who among us could have predicted Operation Blue Star? Stand on the edge of 1990. Who would have imagined that India would have had such almost radical economic reforms? Or that by the end of that decade, thanks to Prime Minister Vajpayee, we would have broken the nuclear apartheid, challenged it, ended it. Or indeed, that Kargil would have happened. Stand on the edge of 2000, and I use this international phenomenon because it was truly international. Who could have predicted 9/11? And the implication for us and for the rest of the world? Who could have predicted the terrorist attacks that took place in that decade in Mumbai, in Parliament, and so on? To stand on the edge, just to change but stand on the edge of in 2010. Who could have predicted the Modi era and the great advances that have taken place in technology? So, when we think about the future, the one thing that we must be certain about is that the future is uncertain. The future is almost inevitably more dramatic. I take you now to another instance in order to understand the meaning of the terms we use. Century. When does a century begin? A century is not necessarily a calendar event. For me, a century begins when the most significant event that shapes the century happens. So in our century, 21st century, I would say 9/11, and the role of terrorism in our lives is the real beginning. In the 20th century, I think the 20th century began with the First World War. And after the First World War, the things that happened, which are not fully understood, but they are critical to our understanding of the 21st century. The end of the First World War signaled the destruction of two political polities that had controlled human life ever since recorded history. One was feudalism, dynasty, the rule of kings, which was taken so much for granted, and the second was colonization. In 1918, you must always remember, by the way, that while the British Empire was immoral, it was never illegal. Conquest of nations was considered legitimate until 1946 and the creation of the United Nations. And that too owes its origins to 1918, because after 1918, with the destruction of great empires like the Tsarist, like the Ottoman Empire, like the Habsburg Empire, from there emerged the first idea of the modern age, that is the nation state. It took a while for the nation state to find its mooring, sure. Such a major historic event is not going to happen in a hurry. But the nation state has, from in steps, it has now become the principal building block of the architecture of stability all across the world. India became the first major post-colonial nation state. India also became the nation state which provided, I think, the four pillars of modernity. It was a modern nation state. Now, when we use words like modern, we have to understand what they mean. Modernity is not dress. One of the great, almost infantile assumptions, I don't know how precisely it has come across, but we always confuse modernity with dress. This is what we did. This is one of the kind of collateral, not benefits, but collateral damages of British colonialism. And so when we think of Gandhi and Jinnah, we think of Jinnah as a modern figure just because he wore three-piece bespoke three-piece suits. And we think of Gandhi as sort of anti-modern because he wore a dhoti. Gandhi wore a dhoti for a very simple reason, which he told the British when he went to Buckingham Palace in order to meet King George V in 1931. And they insisted that he come in the dress, formal dress of the court. And he refused. He says, I will dress like the Indian people. And he was proud of it. Modernity, in fact, Jinnah, for all his three-piece suits, had a medieval mind, had a regressive mind. And we shall understand that. And Gandhi established the four pillars. What are the four pillars of modernity? One, democracy. Number two, freedom of faith. Religion as an accepted part of our rights. Freedom of faith. And freedom of faith, by the way, includes the freedom to be an atheist. Third, gender emancipation. Fourth, freedom from poverty. Freedom from the British would mean nothing if it did not include freedom from poverty. Think about it. What was, Gandhiji's greatest achievement? Gandhiji's greatest achievement was not, in my view, freedom from British rule. His greatest achievement was freedom from fear. It was fear that had changed India to colonialism. It was fear of the British that kept us where we were, in the prisons of the mind. Once Gandhiji liberated us from fear, the liberation of India was only a matter of time. I won't mention the name, but in 1918, 1919 and 1920, a very prominent Indian civil servant, a very good mind. When Gandhiji started his non-cooperation movement, this gentleman said, what does this man in a dhoti think he's doing? The British will rule us for 400 years. That was the conventional thinking of this time. Once Gandhiji started his liberation movement, the British could not last even 25 years. And once India became free in 1947, the whole colonial enterprise of Europe, which was built on the ideology of the past, collapsed, disappeared. I tell you, if Gandhiji had not been an Indian, if he had been a foreigner, the Anglican classes of India would have had more respect for him. But because he was Indian, right, we seem to take him for granted. Just think, my friends, of what he achieved. He built his whole liberation movement on an ideological basis. And the core of that ideology, that principle, was nonviolence. We think that nonviolence only achieved the freedom of India. No. Nonviolence was the most important idea of the 20th century. Gandhi achieved far, far more than Lenin and Mao, than any contemporary leader, because nonviolence led not only to the liberation of India from colonialism, it ended colonialism. I think only Algeria and maybe Kenya had violent independence struggle movements, and they were forced to. Otherwise, the rest of the colonial world ended through nonviolence. Nonviolence ended communism. It happened. I'm sure most of us here remember that. How the Soviet Union collapsed. The Soviet Union did not collapse. It's a word superpower. It did not collapse with any armed struggle. It collapsed out of a nonviolent people's movement. Nonviolence ended apartheid, a curse upon humanity. In South Africa, nonviolence ended racism against blacks in America. How much more can one idea achieve in basically 2 lifetimes? In fact, I can't resist a observation, which is that in the 20th century, atheists inflicted more violence, killed more people than perhaps anyone, and they were the communists. In Russia, and just the number of Chinese killed by Mao, nobody has actually ever counted how many millions were killed by people who thought that they could deliver on an economic policy without a moral compass. But Gandhiji taught us that the moral compass was as important as part of a nation's ideology as anything else. And without that moral compass, we would, in fact, provide an invitation to our most extreme traits and characteristics of the human nature. The power of nonviolence, I have dwelt on. The power of Gandhiji's ideas, I have dwelt on and shown how much they impact. And that too, that is one reason why we maintain as part of our doctrine what Prime Minister Modi says very often, that war is not a solution for the problems of the 21st century. Let's see, we know there are skeptics who will not believe it, who will never recognize it, but that does not mean that we give up our endeavor and our belief in non-aggression. I'm proud to say that India is one nation which has never attacked or been an aggressor. However, our commitment to non-violence is not a commitment to meek pacifism. Because we don't believe in aggression does not mean that we do not understand what should be done to an enemy. We are very clear in our minds. Not an inch of territory shall be surrendered to the invader. And anytime there is terrorism, whoever perpetrates terrorism will be accountable. But when, and I am asked this very often, and I submit this to you, I am asked, what is the ideology of the modern Indian state? And I say, India is a nationalist power. India is among the few countries who actually believe in their nation and in nationalism. And our nationalism is based on a shared civilizational culture. It is based on a humanism. Humanism is not a weak concept, my friend. Humanism is a powerful concept. Without that, there can be no order, there can be no sustenance. In fact, without it, there can be no modernity. If modernity has to have a meaning, it is the elimination of the barbaric, which is also a huge human temptation. It is the end of fascism. Now, in the experience of India and in India's search for modernity and establishment of modernity, I mentioned the 4 pillars. I will repeat them because sometimes repetition helps. The 4 pillars are: 1, freedom of speech, freedom of voice, freedom of political choice, a right to turn governments over through a vote. 2nd, freedom of faith. 3rd, gender emancipation. If women are not equal, you cannot be modern. And 4th, of course, complete elimination of poverty. As long as you have poverty, we cannot call ourselves modern. But on these criteria, India is a successful ideological state. China is not. China may be successful, but China is not modern because the Chinese don't have democracies. In fact, the Chinese people have never had democracy ever since the birth of the first man. And number 2, the Chinese do not permit freedom of conscience and freedom of faith. Until they do that, China cannot call itself a modern state. And one of the principal conflicts of the 21st century will not be over geography. It will be over ideology. It will be between democracy and dictatorship. All dictators claim credibility, acceptance with the argument of the common good. Democracies know the common good can only be determined by the common will. It cannot be determined by a selected oligarchy, a selected monarchy, or a selected handful of people. This, as I said, will be one of them. The second major conflict of the century will be around, again, an experience which we had in our history and in the history of liberation from colonialism. Side by side with the ideas of modernity, which, by the way, became a part of our political constitution in 1931. In 1929-30, we had Purna Swaraj. In the following Congress session at Karachi, Gandhiji wrote the resolution which defined our basic freedoms, which were later incorporated into the Constitution, which is what I have just mentioned. So it's been part of our faith, been part of our doctrine for all through the freedom movement. The Constitution was born through the freedom movement, not the other way around. But alongside came an idea that religion could become the basis of nationalism. And most particularly in the case of the perpetrator or the creator of Pakistan, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, he put forth the argument that Islam is sufficient as a basis for nationalism. I tell you, nothing can be more wrong than that. Nothing could be more absurd than that. Islam in the Quran is a brotherhood. It is not a nationhood. Islam cannot be imprisoned in one country. Even the Quran describes Allah as Rabbul Alameen, as God of the whole universe. He is not described as Rabbul Muslimin, as God only of the Muslims. Leave alone God only of Pakistani Muslims. To trap a nation into a religion, let us be clear, even in our country, no religion can be the basis of our nationalism. The Hindus of Nepal will remain loyal to Nepal. Their deep commitment to Hinduism will not make them loyal to India. Why should they be? No religion can be the basis of nationalism. In fact, Jinnah was a medieval mind, right? But as I said, the pseudo-Anglican class treated him as modern because he spoke clipped accent English, right? And I said, Gandhiji wore the clothes of the peasant. I'm sure some of you, most of you know the story, some of you know the story, but I still will put it out, not least because I always remember my friend Gopal's very, very strong instruction not to be boring. So I think perhaps an anecdote would would bring a smile or two. And this, but it happened in 1931 when Gandhiji went, as I said, to Buckingham Palace wearing a dhoti. When he came out of it, the British media, which is never short of questions, although it is very often short of answers, but British media asked Gandhiji that were you sufficiently dressed for His Majesty King George V? And Gandhiji replied, oh, don't worry, the king had enough clothes for both of us. And at another time, I don't know if you know the phrase plus fours, which is a kind of dress that is worn. But so he said, the British wear plus fours, I wear minus fours. What can I do? But this is the dress of the Indian people. This refusal to accept, Gandhiji never accepted partition. That is the theme of my book, Gandhi's Hinduism, the struggle against Jinnah's Islam. He never accepted partition. In fact, on 15th August 1947, his heart was so broken that when All India Radio and BBC came to ask him whether he had any message, imagine, this is the man, let us acknowledge it. This is the man who led the nation to freedom. Not the only person who led the nation, but I'm quite sure among the giants, the greatest of the giants. He said, I have nothing to say. He had no words to say because this was not the India that he had dreamed of. For him, India began with the borders of Iran and continued till the borders of Burma. But history defeated Gandhi because of false idea. If Islam was sufficient as a basis for nationalism, my friends, why would there be 22 Arab countries? If Islam was sufficient as a basis for nationalism, why would Pakistan and Afghanistan be different countries? There is no evidence in history for such a claim, and yet that claim was made reality on our subcontinent in order to rip apart the present and future of India. Because I think the British knew that India had the capacity to become the power of the 21st century. As the 21st century unfolds before us, we are beginning to see that India, not because Indians are superheroes or supermen or superwomen, but because Indians have a super idea that India will be among the leaders which will take the 21st century into the direction of modernity. This is the template and this is the model. Whenever we analyze Pakistan, my friends, we tend to do so on the perspective of Pakistan's birth of 47, what happened. Just remember, what you see depends entirely on from where you look. If you want to understand Pakistan, don't look at the birth of Pakistan, look at the death of Pakistan in 1971. In 1971, it was not a nation which had just been partitioned again. No, the idea of Pakistan was annihilated because at the very minimum, more than 50% of Pakistan decided that Islam was not the basis of nationalism. And I dare say that in 1971, if the vote and the option had been given to Baloch and to Sindhis, they too would not have accepted that idea. These two challenges, the challenges, as I said, of whether democracy will be the lead idea of the 21st century and whether religion can be the basis of nationalism, they constitute the ideological challenges of our coming 21st century. And in this ideological challenge, yes, India will have hiccups. India will have uncertainties. It is not easy to take a democracy forward. But if you have the courage of conviction, then the rewards are infinite. Rewards are infinite. Once again, heeding the strict orders of my friend Gopal Asu, who also told me that to maintain the discipline of half an hour, I pause here. And if you have questions, of course, and if there is a question answer session, I will be happy to take on and discuss the few ideas I have placed here and see how we can take them forward how we can then make them part not only of your thinking, but most of all, if this session has to be of any sustainable use, then if you believe in what has been discussed and what I have suggested, then becomes our duty to take these ideas forward, because the idea of India is the future of the world. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the enlightening words. Ideology, as we heard today, is not just a set of abstract beliefs. It is the compass that directs the course of a nation's journey. For India, a country with deep historical roots and a dynamic future ahead, our ideologies, whether in governance, economy, or social progress, must evolve to meet the challenges and opportunities of this new century. In India, building for the 21st century, it is clear that we must be agile, adaptable, and forward thinking while honoring our rich traditions and the lessons which we have learned in our past. With that, now I open the floor for questions. This question and answer session will be moderated by Ajit Shri Shiv Prasad Kenneth sir, roll number 50577 pass out, Ajit Komodo Shrikant, roll number 83 pass out. With you, sirs, for this question and answer session.
Thank you, Chetan. So it was a fascinating lecture. All of us, we were aware that after reading a couple of your books, what you'll be speaking on. But then it was really very fascinating to listen to how the word ideology, the way you constructed it, it's something which is really very fascinating. So taking on from what you said in your talk, you referred to all of us being slave to a word like Middle East. It comes from the narrative and our own mindset of colonialism. So how this, because the narratives are built on ideologies and perception, like the way you mentioned about Middle East, how is this perception or the narratives built by the West impacting India's growth story, and what you feel should be the strategies that could be employed to address and counter these negative perceptions and narratives which are built by the West. But I'm sure it's also impacting a lot of our own opposition parties, and quite a lot of us do believe in these Western narratives.
Well, it's a process, and I gave you only one example, but there are many. What we have to do is think like Indians. I'm not so worried so much as whether we should use English or whether we should use other languages in order to express what we say. We can use any language. By the way, I think English is now an Indian language, just as so many other Indian languages. I'm proud to know Bengali. I'm proud to know Urdu. I'm proud to know Hindi as part of my consciousness. But you're proud to know Kannadiga, and you're proud to know Tamil. Which each language is a child of the mother country. And what we need to do is to understand the world from our perspective. Once we start looking, now, why should I just give you another example? Let me extend it. Which is the only nation which can be truly called the Middle East? It's India. India is actually in the middle of the East. We are, in fact, a pivotal nation. Geographically, we are a pivotal nation. When we look east, then we find the true east of the globe. When we look west, we find the beginning of the west. So it's a geographical, geopolitical accident. But we can claim a right to this term, not anyone else, if we start thinking in a different fashion. And once we do that, our policy, our plans will also be impacted. So many of you are in the Navy. I was discussing the Ukraine war just now with someone. And I said, for us, for me, the Ukraine war is not a war of Europe alone. You're trapped in Europe. But for me, when I look at Ukraine, I asked myself a question: how far is Ukraine from Chechnya? Who's fighting in Ukraine except Kadyrov? I mean, not only Kadyrov, others too, but Kadyrov is there. From there, what is the North and South Caucasus? How far is that from Syria? How far is Syria from the latest war zone, which is Lebanon and Israel and Egypt? Whose missile has struck Tel Aviv? The Houthi missile, where are they? They are in Aden. And whose navy is patrolling the Aden most successfully? Is the Indian Navy. So we are already part of that war. In terms of our self-protection, by the way, we are not aggressors. So when you see the world from our perspective, you see how the world changes. And you see how our policy lines, our military option lines, have to deal with our security. The Indian Navy, and thank God, in the last 10 years, one of the Prime Minister has corrected not all, but much of the injustice that was done to the idea of a navy by previous military thinking. That look how today the Indian Navy is on the frontiers of our security threats, not only in the Red Sea, but with the Quad in the Indian Ocean. And it is now the Indo-Pacific. That too, look at the power of terminology. Did anyone before think of calling it by its true name, which is Indo-Pacific? And you can say, as I said, once you start looking at it from the perspective of our interests and our thoughts and our interests, which must be beneficial for all of humanity, then policies change, actions change, and in fact, we become a net contributor to global stability and global peace.
Srikanth, before I go back to you, there's a question from Commodore Shigam. Since MJ Akbar sir was speaking about Navy, there's one naval officer who has posted a question asking me to ask you. Of course, you briefly touched on these points during your talk. He says, can religion play a disruptive ideological role in a multicultural Indian society lacking a cohesive national identity beyond our constitution?
Well, is it Commodore, right?
Yes, sir, Commodore, sir.
Well, Commodore, thank you for the question, but you're clearly not talking about India. Because India has a cohesive identity. So you must be talking about some other country. But yes, religion can be disruptive. We have seen how religious extremism can become a great threat to stability. There are more rational reasons for instability, right? We know because there's injustice in the world of many kinds, and it must be a constant endeavor to correct these injustices wherever we find them. But religion can be a powerful motive. Problem with religion, as much as the as a problem as is mentioned with atheism, is that when religion becomes a tool of human ambition rather than an exercise in service to the Almighty, then religion becomes a negative because of its huge emotional base. You know, it is built on belief. It is not built on reason. We believe. Now, I do not discount the power of belief, by the way, until we resolve the existential questions of why we are born and what happens after death. We will continue to hold religion as our only hope to give some meaning to existence. Every religion does that. Very often I have argued that religion really is the rationale for the afterlife. And to that, it's not good. You can't eliminate the power of religion. But what we can do is keep religion as a positive element in the human psyche, rather than let it become an ideology for destruction, which terrorists across the world are using even as we speak.
Srikanth?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Mr. Akbar. I'm actually torn between what I have to ask you. I got half a dozen of them, sometimes wish to take forward the conversations that we had in Wellington. But let me come back to the very important point you made about Mahatma Gandhi. And you talked of him providing a moral compass, so to say, for a nation's ideology. Would it be right to argue, sir, that his choice of non-violence as a struggle was both moral politic as well as real politic, in the sense that uh, against a superior power with great strength, I think non-violence was a perfect weapon because A, he could outwit the Britishers. I mean, they would have to think what is his next step. He could constantly be a step ahead. What we call in the military as the OODA loop. He could be a step ahead in. And second, with his sort of brilliant communication, I think he was a fantastic advertiser's delight. Brilliant communication strategies and tactics. He could actually sort of not just win the moral battle, he could get the rest of the country to come with him. So, would it be fair to argue, particularly in the light of what you said, that it influenced global movements and had a worldwide impact, that it was a combination, and it was a very sensible choice. It was not merely some loony moralist principle, but it was a very sensible choice anchored in real politics. Would you go with that? And of course, I must mention, as a Navy person, I'm delighted with what you said about the Indian Navy.
No, I know this argument that making a virtue out of necessity has been often attached, but really it has been attached to Gandhiji by those who do not fully understand him. His transformative idea was to recognize the power of nonviolence. He did not see nonviolence as the only option of the meek. Although sometimes he used the terminology borrowed from the Bible of turning the other cheek and so on, it was not. He said, once you decide to die for a cause, the killer becomes impotent. Right? We do not blink when we hear that our armies and in the service of the nation have had so many casualties. It's true, that comes as part of the sacrifices that are necessary for the nation. He asked also for punishment against the British police, the British army. Don't forget that he emerges as a national figure from his work in Jallianwala Bagh. So he has watched what General Dyer can do with guns. He can kill hundreds just in a blink of an eye. The British could have used that same principle in order to, imprison us permanently in fear. What was the British weapon? What did they have? They have nothing but fear. They had exploitation. Do you know how many millions? I hope you get a chance to read my book, Dulali Sahab and the Black Zamindar. How many millions, decade after decade after decade, died of man-made famine? It is there from the British records. Every single school, first, I'm ashamed that even in our schools, used to mention Black Hole of Calcutta. Right? In 1915, and by the way, this is now recorded and recognized, even the British don't use it. 1915, inquiries set up by the British Empire discovered that there were only 7 or 9 prisoners, out of which 3 died of battlefield wounds. That it was complete lie. We had to challenge the power of huge generational propaganda, the challenge of completely subverting whatever was ancient Indian literature. Yes, I know everybody will rush to say, oh, but Warren Hastings admired Sanskrit. But that was not the narrative of colonialism. The narrative of colonialism is that English is modernity. And what we bring to you, that railways are modernity. Railways are good, but railways are were brought into India in order to ensure the speedy movement of British troops. Let me tell you another story. Again, in honor of Gopal's permanent reminder, right, not to be boring. The British once offered the Afghanistan king. He said, why don't we bring the railways to Kabul? And he says, please don't. And they asked why. He says, because I know you will not come alone with the railways. The railways will bring your troops. So it was their goods and troops that were primary. It was not designed for the service of Indian passengers and their mobility. That this happened was an accidental fact. So it was a strategic purpose.
Great, sir. I have lots more, but I think we have Colonel BGV Kumar and General Halgali, both of them wanting to ask questions. So may I request them, sir, in sequence, Colonel BGV Kumar first, followed by General Halgali. You could unmute yourself and ask the questions.
Good evening, Akbar sir. This is
Good
Colonel
evening.
BGV Kumar. I'll address you as sir because I am a great fan of yours.
Oh, that's very kind of you.
Though you're a couple of years younger to me, I suppose.
No, I'm not. I just
You're
pretend to be.
You're 73?
Yes.
I'm 75 anyway. It doesn't matter.
Oh, really? God,
Yeah.
I wish I could look as good as 75 as you do.
I admire your decisiveness in writing and your idea of not mincing words. When you want to say something, you say it. You don't mince words. Anyway, you think out of the box also. And I'm a great admirer, in short. And you blaze your own tracks. You don't go by the follow the beaten track. That is also I noticed. And when you talk with as if you are possessed with that particular subject. That is another great virtue of yours. Anyway, praising you is enough, and everyone knows, and world over your praise. I have a couple of. I noticed a photograph behind you on the old man sitting in his dhoti and a stick. Is it your father or a grandfather?
My grandfather. His name was Prayag Singh, and my son is also called Prayag. I named my son after.
Okay.
Colonel, I think you should also read his book, Blood Brothers. A fascinating story.
Okay.
That's the story of my grandfather. What happened to him? He, in fact, survived the famine in Bihar and then came to a jute mill in Bengal for succor and for survival. Only person in his family, immediate family.
And you took us to the house where he stayed, sir. Talinpara. We had that lunch.
You brought out that point of, Gandhi won not because of non-violence, because of dispelling that fear which was there in us. That is a great point. Yeah. Actually, it's a new thinking which I got from you today, and I'll rethink on various things about Gandhi's action. Actually, which Gopal had said that Gandhi had come in 1934 in my wife's grandfather's house, and he stayed the night there and addressed the villagers there. So that still have an old photograph of that, actually. I'll send it to Gopal, he can send it to you.
Please do that. I'd be love it.
Okay. Then I'm coming on to my last bit of it, my question. I believe that, like, I don't know, whatever your opinions are, you expressed it regarding the religion. I believe that religion is basically should be kept between the four walls of your house and in yourself. And as looking at others and the world, you have to look at them as a human being and not so and so religion. But of late, this even the intellectuals in the country are getting swayed by this movement of Hindutva and trying to say that Muslims will somehow take over because they are producing more children and ultimately it will become a Islamic nation and all. I don't believe in this nonsense, but still, what is your opinion about it?
It's not compulsory to have an opinion on nonsense. I was just reading a very interesting line by Karl Popper. He said, knowledge is finite, but ignorance is infinite.
Anyway, I'll hand it over to the next person who asked me a question. And it was a pleasure talking to you and listening to you also. I'll remain a fan of yours always.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So we can get General Halgali in, sir. If you're Nagendra coming to you in a bit, we'll get General Halgali if he's there. And then we could have Nagendra ask the next questions.
Good evening, Mr. Akbar. Ramesh Halgali is my name. You will continue to remain a very modern thinker of modern India. Let me make a few statements before I ask the question. Ideological strategies adopted by suppressed people during the colonial period in quest for freedom is one thing. The repression unleashed by internal division and ideological differences pose formidable obstacles in furtherance of national objectives. Merely to win elections through the ideological path is, in my view, a sure recipe for disaster. The third important point is the emergence of an interdependent world through trade and technology pose finite boundaries for ideological expansion. My question really prevails upon that when someone asks me, what is the strategy, ideological strategy that we are following today? Well, the quick answer probably is we are trying to divide India, hoping that we will unite it later on. This is a very, very important question to ask. And for India emerging as a world leader, patriotism is probably the key word today. And if India has to grow strong, patriotism probably should do that. Take the 1971 war. The strategy for evolution in the Eastern Command, the man who did it was a Jew. The theater commander was a Sardar. The Northern Air Theater was led by a Muslim officer. And a Parsi was the overall Indian force commander. So if the Indian Armed Forces can represent patriotism through this mold, I think there is a great sense that we need to think about this form. My question to you, sir, is, will our political leaders have the semblance of understanding this patriotism as a key element, which is more important for the emergence of India as becoming a superpower in times to come? Thank you.
Well, General, and in fact, Colonel, India cannot become a superpower without being inclusive. That is the strength of India. As I said, We live in a civilizational space, which is a shared civilizational space. And our strength lies in the fact that it is a shared civilizational space. I refer to facts now in the answer to the question. Just this morning, the papers mentioned the appointment of the new air chief. The new air chief is a Sikh. He is there by merit, as indeed should be. That is India. 3 days ago, on the front page of the Times of India, I read the statement by the chief, the head of the RSS, in which he says that India is a family and every single Indian is part of a brotherhood. Now, when you use the term brother, you mean part of the same family, irrespective of what faith that brother might feasibly hold. The fact is that against the ideal of India, we know through our practice that there are disturbing, and sometimes violent, what shall I say, violent anti-Indian facts that happen to the ground. But sometimes we have to look at reality from the perspective of comparative reality. You know, the colonel mentioned my age, which I try and keep a well-guarded secret, but alas, it is not. But I remember I was, as a 19-year-old, I had to join a newspaper in Bombay because, I needed a salary. I didn't have money for higher education. And so I've been watching Indian elections and the Indian scene from 1970, from the platform of media and then other platforms as well. The India that existed in the 1970s, the massacres that went on in the 1980s, in the 1990s, we have moved on. I believe very strongly that there should not be a single case of that evil called lynching. There should not be a single case of communal riots perpetrated by anyone. But if you look at the comparative reality, look at the transformative advance that we have made. You can look at, it is not a glass which is half full, it is a glass which is 3/4 full. Now we must fill the remaining bit also with humanism. True, but human beings are not perfect. I wish they were, they are not. I truly and strongly believe that it is not governments, but it is the idea of India which reflects an ancient shared space, an ancient cultural cohesiveness that has taken us forward, that is step by step and sometimes stride by stride, eliminating the bad blood in our social and economic systems and taking us towards progress. Which nation in the world can claim perfection in its behavior patterns? Can the superpowers claim that? How many instances of racism you can find anywhere? But our endeavor, as you rightly say, should not be to compare with examples that are worse, but to compare with the best possible, because that is the Indian dream.
Srikanth?
Sir, I think we should over to you, or we should ask Nagendra to come in and AVM Yajurvedi after that.
Nagendra can.
Yeah. Sir, first of all, it was a very inspiring talk. And I'm thankful to all the AF for organizing such an event. And so I would like to put two questions or queries. So is it that
your voice is breaking.
Nagendra,
ideology is that Gandhiji contributed to the ideology of. Yeah. Hello. Sir,
Nagendra, you were cut.
am
Can you
I
repeat?
audible?
Can
Hello,
you
am I
please
audible?
repeat?
Sir, sir, the ideology of Mahatma Gandhi is the same as the ideology of modernity, or should I put it as Mahatma Gandhi contributed to the ideology of modernity? This is my first question. Uh, the second question is, in the last 78 years of our independence, all the political parties, either in power or not in power, have been equally contributing to the this ideology of modernity and Mahatma Gandhi, and they are also equally responsible for what has not been implemented. If I say that, would you agree, sir?
Well, I'm sure George Washington would be shocked at what he saw in America today. So I'm sure that Gandhiji himself would be very disturbed that such problems are continuing. But we have to look, as I said, at comparative realities. We can't look and demand absolute perfection in any society. Second, whether Gandhi made India modern or India was modern or India made Gandhi modern, I think that is not a dispute. It doesn't matter. What matters is that Gandhi provided a vision based on the reality of what I would call both ancient and modern Indian thought and Indian psyche and Indian philosophy. That's the important thing. That our problems through history, if they have arisen, they have arisen because of misuse of power by political manipulation. And some of it will remain. We can't hope that this is not a paradise. What we can only hope, as I said, is that we take India towards that vision of that whole generation. It's not just Gandhiji. I've made this point over and over again, that he was only perhaps a giant among giants. And we were so fortunate that we were blessed. It was the blessed generation. And he was the preeminent among eminent minds and believers. All of them sacrificed everything for a dream and for a vision. So we are basically as beneficiaries of the sacrifices of that generation. The very least we can do is honor their memory by living up as much as we can to their principles.
Sir, I think we have Air Vice Marshal Yajurvedi with us. Yajurvedi, sir? Yeah. Are you there, sir?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. And Mr. Akbar, a fantastic talk.
Thank you, sir.
It really resonated with me, especially the unique sentence that inclusiveness is the way forward for any democracy. And I think we exemplify it. Yet, some political parties are trying to distort this perception. And although it exists fully at the grassroots levels, I do a lot of work in the villages, and the harmony which we have amongst everybody is just unbelievable. Yet, we have got this perception management industry, and what's the solution for it? They go to the extent of even saying that democracy is on the deathbed in India, which I think is almost laughable. My second quick question is clash of civilization predicted by Huntington, is it unfolding in backdrop of what is happening in Gaza and Ukraine? And how will it affect us ultimately? Considering the fact that we ultimately will grow based a lot on our civilization and cultural strengths. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, as far as Huntington is concerned, I suppose I should feel privileged by the fact that he quoted me twice and he misinterpreted me only once. So, but he had a thesis. He had a thesis which I think was powerful for its moment. But it's now the thesis has been proven by proven wrong by events. Clash of definitions of geography should not be considered clashes of civilization, right? Do not, as I said, often said, do not blame Islam for the sins of Muslims, right? Do not blame the reality or refuse to see reality of what you have so rightly considered the powerful space called the Indian village, the Indian people. The people of India have always been far more powerful than the ruling classes of India. And today we are again fortunate to be in an age where the people of India can actually determine the course of history through that extraordinarily powerful instrument called the vote. Sometimes, just to give you a little perspective, the British historians and the British narrative always said that, Pakistan was the creation of a popular vote in 1946. I'm sure we all read that. This is what is mischief of the highest order. Because the vote in 1946 was limited to only 9% of the people.
Yes, absolutely.
It was limited only to the rich. It was limited only to those who could be manipulated. It was never extended to the people of India. Because the British believed that the people of India didn't deserve the vote. Exactly 6 years after 1946, we became the only country in the world to have its very first election on the basis of adult franchise. At that time, we showed that we were capable of adult franchise. What are they talking about democracy? They did not give women the vote till 1928. In France, till the 1940s. Who are they to give moral lessons or any lessons at all? And we believed in giving the vote to the poorest of the poor as a fundamental right in a very beginning of democracy, when that greatest of all intellectuals that you refer to, called in Winston Churchill, said that if you give India freedom and democracy, it will become chaos. Dear Mr. Churchill, wherever you are, it is your country which is now heading towards a bit of chaos, not us.
Sir, I think it will be in fairness of things that you invoked Gopal Hosur quite often in your talk. Let's call in Gopal Hosur, sir. Maybe he would like to defend himself.
No, what he said was right. What is there to defend? Don't be boring, he said.
Gopal, sir, you can unmute, sir.
Let me be very frank. It is never boring to be with you. Every interaction with you has been extremely exciting. And I have always benefited by the long talks that we have on our drives, the places where we halt and move around. And I think at least 3-4 times we have moved around. I'm looking forward to the next one as soon as it is possible. And if it is possible towards North Karnataka, I would love to take you to Bijapur. I'm sure you would have visited Bijapur in the course of your journalistic career. Long while
Very
ago.
long.
And take you to the school also. The principal is also here. I would request her to host you there. We'll be there.
Yes, let's do that.
Yes, sir. Sir, I think I have actually not many, nothing connected with this ideology and the 21st century. For me, it's quite a heavy subject. As you know, you must have understood through my conversations with you. But nevertheless, the number of books that you have written this is purely on a personal question to you. The depth to which you go, the language that you use, the effective language that you use, how did you develop this?
No, books are written out of, I think, some quest which is inside you. A quest, a search for answers. We cannot provide all the answers. But in order to find the answers, we have to have the right questions. And I think these books are basically the formulation of the right questions and the effort to find some semblance of an answer to this extremely complicated and complex thing called life. Attempt also to eradicate, they challenge and eradicate the deliberate falsehoods and prejudices that have crept into our history, which have been inflicted upon our history by vested interests. I think that's, for example, the Dulali Sahab and the Black Zamindar. It includes the Black Zamindar. It's not just about Dulali Sahab, because without support from Indian opportunists, British rule could not have survived. So we are as much at fault. So, and we have to be honest about it. Every book must be a mirror. The latest book, which is Gandhi, A Life in Three Campaigns. Now, very often people have asked me that, what do you mean by life in three campaigns? I said, yes, again, everybody knows the facts, but not everybody sees the reality that is hidden in the facts. We think that Gandhiji challenged the British all his life. Well, he did in a sense, but he fought the British only for 2 years in 1920. Non-cooperation, 2 years in the SALT movement, 1930, and literally 8-10 weeks in the Quit India movement in terms of campaigning. The rest of the time, Gandhiji was campaigning against Indians. When you said that he went to your home in 1934, what was he doing? That was one again his efforts to eradicate untouchability, which is the curse which kept us down. And sir, may I say that Gandhiji lived in your house only because your house never had untouchability, because your house was liberated from the curse of India. And he honored and respected your family for having done so at a time when no one or very few would have done so. That is the true honor. Gandhiji would have rather lived and slept in the open than gone to a house which practiced untouchability. And that is what I meant when I said that he liberated India, because he knew that without the liberation of Indians, he could not free India from the horrific barbarism of colonialism.
Which is the new book you are on, sir?
It should only be available next year, but I hope everybody buys the ones that are currently in the market rather than the next one.
No, the animal fat.
But it's on a very interesting subject if you want me to speak, but I'll speak only a sentence.
Yes.
And
Sir.
It's on something, once again, which startles people. It's on astrology in the Mughal Empire.
Oh, wow.
Every single Mughal king, every single, it only weakened under Aurangzeb, they did nothing without checking with the astrologers. They would not leave home except at the auspicious hour. And they caught the most, known as the best court astrologer from Humayun's time up to Jahangir's time was Jyotik Rai. There were many others also, from Babur onwards. So that is why they were able to merge with Indian cultural mores. They had a great faith in, apart from their, it's not something that people like to hear, but they had great faith in the goddess Alankua, which is a ancient goddess of Central Asia, and Genghis Khan. And they continued. All this is there in Akbarnama, in the official records.
Gopal, can I take on the cue which he talked about Gandhi coming to my ancestral house? There was a lady who was just living about 10 yards from their manager of the person, my wife's grandfather, whose wife was known as Kodagina Gaurama. That means Gaurama from Kodagu, who used to write. She died very young. She used to write the thing for, way ahead. And she, sent a word across that I would like to offer all my ornaments and everything and start off with the Gandhiji's freedom movement. So Gandhiji said, yes, I welcome her, let her come. She says, no, my house is just 10 yards away. And if Gandhiji comes to my house, then I will give it to him. So he came smiling, it seems that is what the story goes, and came across to her. And then she touched the feet, she touched his feet and then handed over everything. And it was the greatness of that man who came across to a common person who never knew him or never had any name anywhere in the earth. And against Gandhiji, he came across and stood in front of her house and then accepted her. So that is the greatness of Gandhi. That is one of the points which I wanted to
In fact,
highlight.
Gandhi changed his attire in South India. When he went to visit one of the textile mills, the textile mill laborers came to meet him. And that day he said, I'll change over into a dhoti. That is the turning moment. It is recorded.
Tamil
So
I think,
Kenneth, you can go ahead.
yes, sir. Because I know there are lots of questions and many more people to ask. I think Srikanth, you could ask one question and maybe because he's been pestering me that he wants to have one or two more questions. Srikanth, one question from your side, please.
No, thank you. I wanted lots more, but I do also realize the constraints of time. Mr. Akbar, I don't want to. This is not a political question. It's more a historical question based on your beginning with Gandhi and Jinnah and contrasting them. Now, in 2019, for the Open magazine, you had written when Rahul Gandhi moved to Wayanad, you wrote an article, and at the end, with your typical brilliant flourish, you said this is the first time in history that the president of Congress is depending on the Muslim League to get elected, and imagine the implications. So 5 years down, do you think much water has flown under the bridge, so to say? Have the implications changed? Have they got aggravated or have they got diminished? So I just want you to come in a bit on that.
Well, we will only know that, you can only discover a man's intention or a person's intention when they are in power. And we will see what has happened. I know that some of the things being said on the fringes, as some people who expect to be in power after the next election, they are not totally conducive to the kind of India we want to develop. But we should not prejudge anyone. What remains, what is a fact is a fact. This is the first time that the preeminent leader of the Congress went to the Muslim League in order to remain in parliament and became dependent on the Muslim League. Perhaps, perhaps it might have been better if the need for parliament was less important than the need to protect the party's ideology. After all, the Congress itself has fought against the Muslim League. So, but if in search of power you abandon your core ideology, then there are consequences.
So, I mean, the question answer could go on and on. We're almost touching 7:30 now. We'll have to end the question and answer session. I just read one thing, sir, because we talked about Gandhiji and his untouchability. There's another fascinating aspect of our great leaders. We're very lucky to have them all. Despite their greatness, they always, even if they differed with each other, they differed with grace. For example, in Mahatma Gandhi, since you talked about Bihar, there was a great earthquake and a lot of people died. Unfortunately, Gandhiji attributed that to the practice of untouchability. Tagore, who was so very close to him, and in fact, he called him Mahatma, he differed with him. So that was a kind of a freedom that everyone, all these great people had. So I think, sir, we'll have to end this because otherwise we'll keep going on and on. Chetan, I'll go back to you. I think you please take over.
Thank you, sir.
When
Yeah,
Gandhiji was called Mahatma, I think when his movements did not succeed and he had to face the reaction, his famous line was, "This term Mahatma stinks in my nostrils." It was a very quaint phrase that he used.
Yeah.
Sorry, yes, please.
Thank you, Shri MJ Akbar. Thank you, Kesnu sir. Thank you, Kenneth sir, for such an enriching discussion, which just broadened our horizon of thoughts. Thank you, sir, once again. I now request Ajit Dr. Ashok Dalwai, a former IAS, to kindly share his thoughts on the Ajit Knowledge Forum and the day's discussion. Over to you, sir.
Unmute, sir. Please unmute.
Yeah, Chetan, thank you. So good evening and thank you very much for acceding to our request to be with us this evening. Actually, we'll have a presidential remark by Gopal Vasur. Mine is an interjection. It is rather an anachronistic intervention here, but still my friends asked me to say something, so in a way I'm compelled to share some words or sentences here. First, I think I am myself exalted after listening to someone of your stature speaking about Mahatma Gandhi. Because day in and day out today, we are bombarded with all kinds of narratives which negate the very contribution of Gandhiji. I think you put it very rightly as to what his real contributions are. Only if he had not removed that fear from the minds of people and brought the people of the country together, transcending the barriers of caste and religion, I don't think so we would have won freedom. Many a time people make out that we had a naval rating and that brought us independence, that Subhash Chandra Bose went outside, aligned with the Allied Axis powers, and that brought us freedom. Not to negate the contributions of those, but then how did they have the courage to do that? That courage to protest itself symbolizes the removal of fear which Gandhiji's movement had brought out. So I was really happy to listen to this, and I'm sure all our friends here would also be equally happy and would also have understood the real contribution, philosophical contributions of Mahatma Gandhi. And just to share with you that this knowledge forum of ours is one of the many verticals which aims at building our alumni association into a global organization. We are extremely aspirational. We want to make our alumni association as one of the top alumni association, a class of students. And one unique feature of our association is that we have people from all backgrounds. We studied together at school, and after that, people have taken their own path of professional life. So naturally, we have from the social worker to the farmer, to the parliamentarians, to the bureaucrats, police officers, and of course the military service people, and then doctors and so on. So it's a very beautiful bouquet. And then we have had the pleasure of listening to very well-known personalities. We invite people who are thinkers, who make a perceptible impact in the society through their thinking and talk. So right down, beginning with Shyam Benegal, the film director, to Rakesh Sharma. We have had all kinds of people come and speak to us. So, sir, you joined that galaxy, and thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
And I would also take this opportunity to make a few thoughts of my own. I mean, now, in a way, I would come down from the esoteric level that you were to the plains, so that our younger Ajits, our cadets who are there in different schools who joined us from Jammu to Satara to Bijapur would possibly be able to understand and tick mark a few words for if somebody is asking them a question. Now, since we are talking about how India can become a modern nation, or how it can become a nation and occupy its rightful place in the 21st century, and what kind of ideology do we require? What I understand from you is that the ideology that we have got during the freedom struggle, inclusiveness, democracy, and removal of poverty, economic distribution of wealth, these are the fundamentals that will hold on and they will become necessary. You have read, and all of us have read here, Why Nations Fail. So why nations fail when they compare India with China and say that China may not sustain itself because they do not respect institutions, they do not respect democracy, whereas India's strength is respect for democracy and institutions, independence of judiciary, independence of various other bodies. So I think the 21st century, as long as we continue with our commitment and dedication to nurturing and sustaining these institutions and the fundamentals of democracy, nobody can stop India becoming one of the great powers or Vishwa that we are aiming at. Now, as I was saying, sir, that what are the basic challenges that the world will face? This is very important to appreciate this because I just give an example. When we talk about water use efficiency in India, that a farmer in Punjab should not extract more water than required, he doesn't realize that it is impacting the farmer in Pakistan, farmer in Indonesia, because the groundwater aquifer covers 74 countries, including India. So nature does not differentiate and it does not recognize the artificial constructs called national boundaries. Therefore, the necessity for all nations to come together to solve the challenges of 21st century will determine the ideology. So I jotted down a few of the challenges. The first one, of course, is mitigating the environmental and ecological disaster that already the world is meeting. Second one is, I think, most important, the void of vision in the 21st century, driven by supply-led economics and materialism. There is a void of vision and foresight. I think 19th century and the beginning of 20th century, they were lucky because they were led by ideology, vision. So how do we recreate that vision for the 21st century? Can India do that? Then other important one is increasing inequality. I think that's the biggest challenge, sir, in 21st century. That if we follow the classical model of market-led economy, we're going to have concentration of wealth, increasing inequality, and of course, distribution of wealth. This is another challenge. Can India show the way to negotiate this? And then fifth one is crisis of identity. Today, with increasing urbanization, there is anomie. People do not have an identity. There's mobility across the globe, so they don't have an identity. So every community, every individual is fighting for his identity. In the bargain, there are conflicts in the name of various denominations. Then technological disruption. It can have positive disruption, it can have negative disruption. But artificial intelligence, robotics, sensors, all this set of emerging suite of technologies is actually disrupting the labor market. So how are we going to find jobs? Otherwise, we are going to convert a mass of lazy people who are only looking for enjoyment. And how far can they continue to enjoy without work? So I think technological disruption is going to have a huge impact on sociology. And then, of course, conflicts and wars. But as you are saying, sir, I think the conflict and war would not be over boundaries, but it would be over ideologies. So how do we negotiate this? And changing or shifting economic powers. I think now we're slowly moving away from US, Europe, and UK to Asia, including China, India, Southeast Asia. So what is this going to mean with the changing power structure in the next 30, 40 years? What is it going to mean? And then civil disaffection. We've seen Arab Spring, we're seeing the umbrella movement in Hong Kong, we're seeing now populism USA, UK, Europe. So this kind of disaffection that is increasing across the globe, what is ideology going to do about it? And then living in a global society. Now every country, at least most countries which attract people, are becoming plural like India. So India, which has been plural always over the last 2 millennia, can it actually develop an ideology to show to others as to how we live together? This is a new experience for USA, new experience for UK, new experience for Europe. And they are having conflicts today because they do not know how do we build network at the village level, as our Air Vice Marshal Lejurwadi was saying. And then, of course, migration mobility. I think, sir, migration mobility, of course, is the order of the day, but then it is not happening uniformly across the world. It is happening from certain countries to certain countries. So there is a destination and there is a source. So I think this is going to bring about inequality in the demographics. So I feel that these are the 8 to 10 challenges that the 21st century will face. And what kind of an ideology? Is it political ideology, economic ideology, sociological ideology? I mean, each of these is only is isolated. We need to again build diffusion among these things. Only then we can have a uniform, comprehensive, wholesome answer. So I can end up by saying that some of the negotiation tools that we need to develop to formulate a kind of ideology are collaboration. How do we promote collaboration among all, irrespective of religion, caste, class, etc.? Then communication, effective communication. Sometimes we see problems of communication, what we want to say and what we say is creating a problem. Then creativity, the challenges to the limitations of natural resources, increasing population, inelasticity of land will call for creativity and innovation. Critical thinking. I think today this media is the biggest culprit. It is actually converting the critically thinking, rational man into a bag of potato. And all of us are very much willing to let down our guard and become just a potato and say yes to everything like a flock of sheep. So critical thinking, how to nurture and keep it alive. And the character, that is another one, very important. Of course, it has a broad meaning, and then we need to define that. Then the citizenship. As I said, national boundaries are artificial. Our Rabindranath Tagore has said that. Kuvempu, who is called a national poet from Karnataka, has said that. We need to break the walls that have fragmented this entire world into narrow lanes. So how do we build citizenship? One citizenship, double citizenship, triple citizenship, or ultimately a global citizenship. And then, of course, computational thinking. Given that information technology-led technology is going to become the order of the day, it has become order of the day. Computational thinking would be another issue. Therefore, sir, I think the new ideology, as you said, based on the fundamentals that you spoke about, we can superimpose some of these things. These are maybe translatable ideologies. What you said are the fundamental ideologies on which we have to build these things. So we got a clear understanding of the ideology and the opportunity and the potential that India has got in the 21st century. to become the new Vishwa Guru, based not on materialism, but based on ethics, morality, inclusiveness, and as we say, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. It has to be believed in. We have to believe not in letter, but also in spirit and practice. So once again, sir, thanks a lot. We've had wonderful Q&A session. And I know that you are a corpus of knowledge, but you restricted yourself to a few words. But you have created that keenness in all of us to read your books, to listen to you. As a beginning, we requested our principal of the science school to order for 2 sets of all your books, and our alumni association will be paying for that. So likewise, if other schools also want it, we'll be very glad to order for them. And this is a small recognition of your willingness and your consent to be with us here. But certainly, we look forward to our continued association with you and your guidance. And you can always tell us what we can do in service of our nation. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, Ashok.
Sir,
Thank you, sir.
I think the principal is there, sir. You mentioned her.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, let us bring her on the spot. Yeah.
Dalwai, sir, you mentioned the principal
Yeah,
being there.
She's there,
Sir.
she's there.
That's the principal.
She's come.
Sir, good evening. Good evening, sir. Good evening.
Namaskar.
Group Captain Pratibha Bisht, with the principal, first lady principal of the Science School, Bijapur. Okay, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me. And it was a very, very informative talk, sir. And I think my cadets were delighted to hear from you. And it was very basic, which they can also understand all the things which you have taught. And sir, we are so thankful. Our school has received some copies, sir. And soon, sir,
Thank you.
we'll be giving it to our young minds to go through these books, sir. Yes, sir. So we have some, and thank you, sir. Thank you,
Thank you.
Ajit, our old boys, for sending these books to the school library. And I am very happy to have these books, and so as my cadets here. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Chetan, you can go ahead. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Principal, Science School, Bijapur. Thank you, sir, for amalgamating the thoughts and on the lines of ideology and developing and building the nation. With the present ongoing geopolitical scenario, it is indeed a seed sown in the Ajit Knowledge Forum, which will fructify in due course of time. Now, I request Ajit, Shri Gopal Hasu sir, President Ajit Alumni Association, to kindly say a few words.
Thank you, Chetan. And thank you, Ashok. You have made my job easier. You have dealt with the subject in great detail. First and foremost, I would like to thank the AKF, Satija and his team for organizing this talk by one of our modern thinkers, Mr. M.J. Akbar, sir. Sir, thank you for being with us. It has been a great privilege that a man of your stature, of your understanding, your depth, has been with us for quite some time today. And you have explained to us what ideology plays an important role in the past, present, and in the future too. We are extremely delighted to listen to you, understand the various nuances which you brought out through a few of the anecdotes. But let me also tell you, sir, that I did not restrain you in any way from speaking. I only said that the subject would be a little too heavy. Sir, the school's motto has been Ajit Hai or Abhit Hai. This is a line drawn by one of our former principals, Wing Commander K.D. Singh from the Gurban. And I think your today's talk harmonizes with the Science School Bijapur's Ajit Hai or Abhit Hai. We are a very well connected group. We are spread across all the countries in the world. the classroom was our world when we were in the school. But most of us have branched out into different directions, different professions, different vocations, and but yet the Alumni Association keeps us bound together. And we are extremely proud and happy that the great speakers, thinking minds, people who can express themselves, come to our forums, and you have been one of the most outstanding among them. As Colonel B.J. Kumar said, you speak with a lot of strength, and this strength only comes from conviction. I think you have very strong convictions on what you have said, and we are immensely benefited by listening to you. One thing you always mentioned, I think I have heard you say somewhere else, a neighbor is one who can be reached. A neighbor one need not be geographically next to you. In the same way, the Ajit Alumni Association, though it is spread out, it is a very, very closely knit, harmonious group. And we are extremely proud of our alumni, and we are trying to take, as Ashok rightly said, that we want to make it one of the best alumni in the country. So our efforts are on, and people like you coming to us, addressing us, and we onboarding a number of schools, number of institutions for such programs actually gives us a lot of strength. Your promise that you would visit North Karnataka soon remains, and I'm sure it will be fulfilled as soon as is possible. Today we are extremely happy. I would not like to take much time. I would like to thank all those who are present on this show from across the world for having spared your time. Saturday evenings are definitely should not be prolonged so long, but nevertheless, such an interesting talk that we have had, and we are extremely grateful to you, sir. I thank all my alumni for this organizing this meet, and we look forward to gaining more strength in the days to come by mutual interactions and taking the alumni forward. The registration of the alumni is due, which the re-registration of the alumni is due, which I request Dr. Ashok Dalwai and others who are working on it to implement it as soon as is possible, so that we are on a more stronger footing. Our commitment to our alumni always remains, and Group Captain Pratibha Best has provided excellent leadership in the last couple of years. So I would like to congratulate her and her team for ensuring that the flag of the school has been kept flying high. Saying these few words, I end my talk by saying, हम अजीत हैं और अभीत हैं. धन्यवाद. Namaskar.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much for the inspiring and kind words, sir. Ladies, gentlemen, and cadets, as with that, we draw towards end of today's Ajit Knowledge Forum session. I now invite Ajit Jagdish, our roll number 2210-95 batch, to convey the vote of thanks. Jagdish, sir, please.
Thank you, Lieutenant Commander Chandan Kumar. What an enlightening evening it is. Good evening, everyone. It is my privilege and honor to extend a heartfelt vote of thanks as we come to the close of this remarkable, highly insightful, and inspiring talk. Today has been a truly enriching experience, and we owe that to our distinguished speaker and all the amazing people that have gathered here. First and foremost, I would like to extend our sincere gratitude to the speaker of the day, Shri M.J. Akbar sir, for taking time and sharing his expertise and knowledge with us. Your scintillating talk on the role and importance of ideology in building India for the 21st century has certainly broadened our understanding and inspired us to think more critically on the subject. Sir, couple of your quotes on Gandhiji, like his contribution is not from freedom, from British, but from the freedom of fear. And your new insight on the geography that India is in the Middle East, and your views on war and peace, that we are in war by defending ourselves, are really something which actually astonished all of us.
Your ability to captivate all the listeners and present complex ideas with such clarity and enthusiasm has truly been remarkable. We are incredibly fortunate to have you had the opportunity to learn from someone of your stature. And I am sure that everyone present here has gained valuable takeaways that will resonate long after this session. On behalf of everyone here, thank you once again for your time, effort, and commitment to making this session a grand success. We look forward to engaging with you in the future too, sir.
Yeah, one more message I would like to give Jagdish and
Sir.
others.
Yes, sir.
One of Mr. MJ Akbar sir's request is, instead of distributing sweets in the Diwali, better buy books and distribute them that are much more long lasting. The sweets will decay, they'll go to the dustbins, but books will remain with you for life and for the future generations.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah. Now, we owe everything to our alma mater, Sainik School, Bijapur. My heartfelt gratitude to Principal, Group Captain Pratibha Bish Ma'am, Vice Principal, Registrar, teaching and non-teaching staff, and to our dear cadets for having gathered here for this great conversation and learning. We also have several educational institutions across the globe to whom we thank for their active participations, such as Sainik School Bijapur, Sainik School Satara, Sainik School Nagrota, Sainik School Amravati Nagar, Waikato University, New Zealand, Doon Business School, Dehradun, BIT MBA Nagpur, Annapurna MBA Sankeshwar, KLE MBA College, Belgaum, JJ Group of Institutions, KLE Diploma College, Chikkodi, GEMM CEO, Magnum Tuff, Sri Basaveshwara Cooperative Bank, Nippani, 3rd Karnataka Battalion, NCC cadets, along with Ajit, Colonel Shashidhar B. Malgi, sir. We thank with great gratitude to all the principals and administrative staffs of these esteemed institutions. Huge round of applause to all the Ajit's families and friends who have joined us this evening across the globe in spite of their different time zones. With deep love and gratitude, we thank our President, Sri Gopal Hussain sir, and to our mentors, Colonel BGV Kumar sir, Dr. Ashok Dalwai sir, Vishwanath Patel sir, and Shashidhar Albur sir, who have been the guiding lights for making Ajit Alumni Association a global forum with their constant support and dedication. My sincere thanks to our beloved Chairman of Ajit Knowledge Forum, Sri Sudarshan Satija sir, for his tireless engagement and support in making each AKF event a great experience. Now, last but not the least, my huge round of shout out to the team Ajit Knowledge Forum. My sincere thanks and gratitude to our mega mentors, Sri Maltesh Jivanavar sir, Prakash Shagave sir, Sidram Nargauda sir, and quintessential question and answer team handled by Shivaprasad Kenneth sir and Commander Shrikant Kesnur sir for beautifully steering the conversation and engaging with the audience. Spectacular social media team led by Ranga Jagannath sir, Vijay Thakur, Sagar Metri, and Jayaraj N for the eye-catching videos and posts that kept all of the viewers on their toes to be part of this energetic evening. And marvelous media outreach team headed by Commander Shrikant Kesnur sir, Lieutenant Commander Vivekanand Bankoli sir, and Chandan Mali Patil for reaching out to various educational institutions and various groups in a short span of time and ensuring the engagement with a huge audience for the evening. And our terrific tech team led by Milind Katti sir, Dinesh Badganti sir, Director Santosh Humbal, and Sagar Metri for their tireless effort in streaming the event seamlessly across the globe on various platforms. And to our mesmerizing MC, Lieutenant Commander Chetan Kumar, for steering the whole event so beautifully with his charismatic personality. Please excuse me if I have missed out any names. It's purely unintentional. Finally, once again, I thank each and everyone on behalf of the team AKF for being here and making it a memorable event. Ajit hai, Abit hai. Over to Lieutenant Commander Chetan Kumar.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for conveying the vote of thanks on behalf of the Ajit Knowledge Forum. Dear friends, I now request all of you to rise for National Anthem.
Jai Hind.
Jai Hind. Thank you once again. We look forward to seeing you all in the next AKF session. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on various social media platforms. This is your host, Lieutenant Commander Chetan Kumar, roll number 3638, 2008 pass out. Signing out. Jai Hind. Ajit hai, Avit hai.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Akbar, sir.
you.
Thank you.
Sir, you
Thank you.
can go out,
Thank you
sir.
so much, everyone.
Thanks a lot,
You can
sir.
log out, sir.
We'll be in touch with you. Thank you, sir.
Please look forward to that.